All right, so we're on rubbish. What page is it, Chris?
Page 100.
Page 100. All right.
Page 100 through to 106.
Hello, Emily.
Are we not working through this
We've got staff here that we want to get home and stuff, and so
So 106 is it? 106.
100 to 106.
Page 100? Page 100.
So we'll take it as read and understood, and I'll hand over to Mark. I think just first Chris, and then back to you. Just
Yeah, we're happy to answer questions, Your Worship.
yeah.
I'll just signal an amendment to the proposal. Do you want to see the amendment now, or
Yeah, we'll get it up on the board. It makes
Okay.
it makes us easy to we can focus it that way.
Someone move the motion.
Yes, so I'll move the motion with Deputy Mayor,
okay?
and then
Yep. Cool. Okay.
who's your seconder?
Dave or Paula? Did you want to second the rubbish one? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it'll be Paula Becker. Sorry, rather than Dave. Thank you, but I appreciate Dave your advice and your wording on this one. Yeah, exactly. Can I have a look at it up there, please? Just remember what I wrote. That's right. Essentially, it's to approve the rubbish and recycling service worth to the value of. I've got to get this number right. Becca, can we?
So, councillors, just while we're doing that, can I just point out a couple of corrections to your report? So if you go to page 104, just page 104, we got 3 numbers slightly wrong there.
A1? Oh, okay. I thought I was the slow one.
Yep, so those are the numbers I'll just correct. So if you go to, if everyone's on page 104, figure 1, so the first number in the very right-hand column is 88,219, is it? Yeah. That should be 88.792. The next number underneath, which reads 81.122, that should be 81.704. And the last one, 84.934, should be 85.516. So not a major change, but we apologise for that. We just got a number wrong in our spreadsheet.
So will that actually change my amendment?
And one other correction, in paragraph 14, we omitted Councillor McPherson from the Waste Task Force, and the reason for that, he wasn't on the original resolution, and Council's decided that later, so we should add Councillor McPherson to the task force on 14.
Okay, cool. I'll just wait for the amendment to pop up there. While we're waiting for the wording, the guts of it is it's a very similar amendment to the original motion. The main difference being we take away the user pays element and bring it in as a part of the general rate with a line in the rates bill showing you how much it is, so people realise how much the rubbish service is essentially. The option we would prefer to go on a basis on the work we've done with the task force is for the fortnightly collection of rubbish and recycling and the food weekly. So if you look on the columns on page 104, oh yep, it's a Sri Lankan fellow. Oh cool, there you go. Getting there? Thanks very much. Okay, essentially it's the council approves a rubbish and recycling service with the net estimated expenditure of 81.704 for the 10-year period that is funded through the general rate, and that service includes 1, wheel bins for rubbish, recycling and food waste, that's Romans 1. Romans 2, weekly collection of food waste containers. Romans 3, fortnightly collection of rubbish and recycling containers. And Romans 4, the cost of rubbish and recycling service be expressed as a separate charge, on the rates invoice. Yep.
That will be the same for everyone.
So the figure will be the same for everyone, or will that be based on that valuation, your property valuation?
It'll fluctuate from person to person, so it's not a standard charge,
Okay,
not a uniform charge. No.
so it will be a tiny percent of your total rates,
Yep.
but that will vary according to every ratepayer. So
Yes.
it'll be a percentage of your...
Of your rates, yeah. It's just the purpose of that is basically people realise it could have been user pays. We want to show them what it is worth, what the new service is worth, because it's a whole new way of doing things. So we want to see what they're paying for it, basically. So I'll speak to it later. There we go. That was clumsy, but we got there.
Angela.
So just in terms of the Roman numeral four, number 4, so you're just wanting it, you know how we get the rates notice now and it says how much you pay for X, X and X?
Yeah,
So it's just like that, it's not a targeted rate?
Absolutely not a targeted rate, yeah.
Great, thanks.
So just so they can see it, basically.
So this starts in 2020, or does
2020,
it start on the 1st of July 18?
2020, because we've extended the existing contract out for that extra year.
So until then, it will be just hidden, the cost.
Yeah,
The
it'll be the same
present, the
as.
present arrangement will just remain where it is in the general
Yeah,
rate.
unless you can see the value in putting it into the rates bill, which wouldn't hurt.
Isn't there a little circle with a pie graph?
It's a pie graph.
It's hidden.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
Mark, you're on for debate.
Oh, right, okay, right, we're into it. Oh, anyone got any questions? Sorry, you're running the meeting, not me.
All my questions were around the $5 charge, so I guess now that that's gone, all my questions have gone, haven't they?
Mark.
Well, okay, well, let me carry on. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Mayor on putting up the bins as an option, as opposed to the existing system. I think that's a really great step. When we brought, or when previous council brought, or previous council brought the recycling in 2002, we were leaders, and now actually we're way behind in that field. There's been some stunning work from, in particular, Emily and the Charlotte and Kirsty and Trent and the people in the waste waters. Our conversion rate now at the moment, though, is 28%, and that means effectively that 72% of all domestic waste is going into landfill. It leaches, it doesn't rot, and all indications are it's going to get more and more expensive, as we heard yesterday. 2 years ago, thanks to the really good work of that task force, we went to the public with choices on a new system. There was a record response, record favourable response. People wanted bins and they wanted to do the right thing. The issue we have with the original motion is user pays. And just in 7 quick points, rubbish collection has always been a part of the general rate, hence our inclination to put it back into the general rate. It is, in consumers' mind, or in ratepayers' mind, a core service. The only comparable city that actually has totally user pays is Tauranga, I think, in New Zealand, and they're having all manner of problems at the moment. Number 2, if we go user pays immediately, we open up ourselves to competition. And there will be competition if we are changing provider, and they'll be ready to go and they'll be hungry. Now, while that's not a bad thing on the surface, it comes with several traps, which brings me on to number 3. It could mean that there are bins on every street every single day of every week if we lose market share. That is a mess. But that's not the worst thing. If, according to these figures, we lose 50% market share by a $5 price point, we're going to lose control of the amount and the quality of the products we're taking away, in other words, the waste. We will never get that market share back. Creating a bylaw, while it's well intended, I view as probably anti-competitive, and it could be a very expensive exercise in itself, minimising a lot of the cost benefits we may get out of a user pay system. The waste minimisation plan we're adopting is all about making recycling, reuse and responsible dealing of waste an integral part of people's behaviour, not being nanas about it. Bins will do that. User pays will bring an anti-feeling immediately. People will resent the system straight away. They will rebel. Fly tipping, competition, the works. It ain't going to be nice. And finally, 1 ticket for 3 bins could be really logistically hard to sort out. If you're having $5 for all 3 bins, you have 3 different trucks, come along, take away the first one, how are you going to know who's paid for what? So logistically it'll be interesting. Plus, we can't underestimate the outlay that a user pays service will entail. This task force has worked really hard and very, very well with the community, with elected members Paula, Siggy, Dave, Andrew and myself, and great work from the staff, Charlotte, Kirsty, Trent, Emily and Chris. Thank you very much. You've done great work so far, and I think we're getting closer. It's going to be really exciting. So recycling, reuse and decent product stewardship isn't a nice to have. It is now an economic necessity. So with that in mind, I'd like to move that motion with Paula's seconding.
Okay. I'd just like to thank Mark for the work he's done chairing this task force. You did well. I thought the task force has been good, very good. Emily, you've done a lot of work on this, and I questioned you pretty severely, and Chris, and you were right once I got through all the figures, and I couldn't believe you were right, and so I went through it all again, and you were right. So I just want to congratulate you for Emily. This has been going on for at least 2 years that I'm aware of. So it's been a big job, and I think the city's better for it. I will be voting after your speech and with the direction that you've given and the knowledge you've got through the task force for the amendment. So, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I also want to praise and compliment Councillor Bunting. He's done an incredible work with the staff team and shown, in my view, some really excellent leadership and vision and passion. Obviously, the fortnightly collection, I'll watch with some interest, you know, how that works, and obviously that'll be something of a detail. With regard a separate charge on the rates invoice, obviously it was part of some notional uniform annual charge. I could understand that, but I would warn with some caution if people are paying high rates as a proportion, it may be, you know, in other words, if it's to be expressed on their rates, well, they have to see value for that. So I think how that's expressed, I would argue you need to approach it with a degree of caution, but that's fine. But I think, you know, in view of the arguments and the work, I'll be also supporting the amendment.
Councillor Dave.
Thanks. Look, just a couple of extra points to what's been said. Firstly, with user pays, I think it would be an administrative nightmare for our staff, and I can't see a system that would work easily with that, with all sorts of other options on the go at the same time. And I think we'd end up collecting a whole lot less. So I wait for the...
Oh, Jeff, oh, Jeff.
What's that? Oh, is that you?
Yeah. Big boy.
Was that Siri or you? It's one of those dodgy videos you got off the internet, was it? Now I'm going to have to start again. No, I promise not to. Look, one of the things that the new plan's going to have to address, no matter which way we do it though, is the public education, which Bunty touched on before. We used to have a much better conversion rate, i.e. the proportion of waste that wasn't going to landfill when we started this program in 2002. It's died off over the years. We've got slack, and so has the public in Hamilton. And in order to save us money and to be environmentally conscious, and for finance staff to be less noisy, we need to... I haven't heard that. Hey, hard to hear ourselves think with you three going. Thanks. We need to actually have a really good public education campaign. This is a great opportunity for that. I was sceptical about fortnightly collection of rubbish and recycling to start with, because people have got used to the weekly stuff. But when I went down and saw what they did in Christchurch, it was clear that after teething problems were sorted, they'd got that working quite well. And the smelly stuff, the food waste, that goes out each week. So it'll actually push people not to just chuck everything in together in the rubbish bin. It'll push them to stick the smelly stuff in the food waste and the non-organic stuff either in recycling or in the general rubbish bin, which can stay for quite a few more days, obviously. So I think learning from the experience of Christchurch, we can have quite a good system, and it will be a bit cheaper to do those fortnightly than to have to do all 3 each week.
Councillor Ange.
Yeah, thank you. Look, this is a great decision. I will be supporting the amendment. This has been a couple of years in the making, I think, and an excellent example of a previous council and a current council coming together over a good idea. I agree that the communications plan should start really, really early, and I know that Councillor Bunting, you're onto that as chair of this working group, because there'll be a little bit of pain when people realise that they're getting these plastic bins delivered. But once it's here, it's a fantastic thing, and I just have to reiterate that it's decisions like this that have a tangible effect on the daily lives of people in a good way, and enable them to be able to contribute to the environment in a good way as well, that we don't do enough of this kind of decision making, and this is significant. I think it definitely still holds the records for the highest number of submissions ever. Nearly 3,000. I think there's a sweepstakes going for that. But however, we might see that change with this particular budget going out. But no, good work everyone, and good work to you and your team, Councillor Bunting.
With the consent of the Deputy Mayor, will we withdraw the motion?
I'm happy with that.
Okay. All right, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to follow on from Councillor McPherson. Actually, first of all, I want to say to Councillor Bunting, it was awesome. He's showed some really great leadership there in this arena, and it was fun working on rubbish and talking rubbish. So it was cool. Following on now from Councillor McPherson about public, absolutely we have to educate the public. Now what I found out in Christchurch was as soon as they dropped the ball and stopped educating the public, they the waste, something just didn't happen and people just didn't care so much about recycling and so on. So we have to just remember that this is a continuous exercise, that we should not drop the ball on that, because people just tend to forget and then they just throw everything together. The other thing I just also want to, I'll just put that out as for us to, maybe as a challenge. In Christchurch, they've had these bins now for 9 years, something like that. They have had no minimisation of the waste in general, lots of redirection, but no minimisation. So I think we should beat them and really get that minimisation done as well. So I'm excited, looking forward to talking more rubbish and doing a lot more work in that arena. Thank you.
Councillor Paula.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. It's been a pleasure to be part of this working group, because we grappled with some fairly complex issues, and we grappled with some concerns of the public around moving to wheelie bins and the space they take up on property and those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, we were all aligned in the working group after much robust discussion, and that's how these things should work. And I think it's really important for the public just to be aware that the cost of waste is going up regardless, no matter what we do. We have an obligation to be best practice in waste management, in my view. We should do best practice. There's no such thing as a way when you're talking about waste. It goes somewhere and it goes into landfill. But we knew that the government was likely to increase waste levies anyway. So by weight, we were all going to be paying more in the long run for waste. And so this becomes, this just makes common sense in the end. I'm sure there will be a few teething issues. I'm really sad that one of the ideas didn't come to pass, and that was that we'd have bunty stickers on the side of the bins. No, seriously, we did talk about branding the bins to try and get some revenue. The time for that isn't right quite now. So we had all kinds of interesting and fun debate about this, but this is the correct way forward. I'm looking forward to the waste management plan And I always said I thought the timing was a little perverse because we decided on one thing before the plan, if you know what I mean, the implementation of waste before the plan. But I'm sure that they will be consistent. Let's not forget, Hamilton, that there are a number of other waste streams that we need to focus on. And I'm particularly, such as construction waste, which is a very large amount of waste in Hamilton by volume. But I'm also really, really keen on having the next set of conversation around avoiding waste, not just what we do at the bottom, at the end when we've got the waste, how do we dispose of it or recycle it, but how do we reduce avoid the waste and minimise the waste in the first place. And I think we've got the opportunity to show some really good leadership here. So it'll be an interesting further conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right of replied, Mark.
Yeah, okay. It won't be a particularly contentious right of reply. Just a couple of extra little points. The ads on bins thing, thank you for putting up with my nagging about that. And but the good thing is now with this proposal, the contractor actually buys the bins themselves rather than us buying them, which takes the heat off that quite nicely. So yeah, just look, in my previous job, I used to talk rubbish for a living, and now I talk rubbish for a living. So thank you again, Angela, for your kind comments. You gave us a really great vehicle to push along to the next step, so well done. Huh?
Okay, we'll go to the board.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, we'll now go to Garden Place upgrade. So who's presenting on that?
Mr. Eglinton,
Thank you.
although pretty much he's just sitting there
So
taking his read, Mr. Mayor.
we'll take it as read. From conversations earlier in the day, didn't you have an amendment on this?
No, I have an amendment on the playgrounds, which of course affects Garden Place because there is a playground in Garden Place. But my amendment on playgrounds can go either way depending on how Garden Place goes. So if Garden Place doesn't happen, my amendment will still work with just a minor change. If it does go, then my amendment is fine to be considered.
So you've got an amendment on Garden Place as well?
I'm sharing.
Oh, so you've
But on
got that together.
playgrounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so if,
All right.
if
So
maybe we could do
it's-
playgrounds first, it'll be
So there's just one amendment for Garden Place.
it's part of the playgrounds.
Okay. So we'll take it as read. We'll get the motion up. We'll get the amendment up.
Hang on, so where are we on this?
So we're doing
one?
Garden Place first, are we?
210.
Yep. So what page are we on, Calvin?
310.
All right. So if we can get the amendment up and the motion up.
Can I just,
So this amendment is not for Garden Place. This is for the playgrounds.
Okay.
so, if-
So it would probably make
So
sense.
we've got the wrong amendment up. So
yeah.
I thought
But
you-
this amendment does impact on Garden Place, but it
Okay.
doesn't matter which way.
well, let's take Garden Place first. And let's get an amendment up on Garden Place to suit what you'd want to do
No,
here.
it doesn't really, no,
Doesn't.
doesn't affect Garden Place.
Okay.
As I understand Garden Place, we will, it is the business community that will be responsible for the
310.
delivery of Garden Place per the plan that they have already submitted. Is that still
Well,
where
my
I-
understanding was that you'd talked to them and they said they could accommodate a
No, there was already a playground.
a destination playground in
No,
there.
no, it wasn't a destination
No,
playground.
not you, Mark.
Yeah, so
At $600,000 more or something.
No, within,
It was within the existing budget. So my support for Garden Place is dependent on the playground amendment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So the difficulty I find myself in here is if I vote for this, then the playground amendment can't happen in its current form.
yes it can, yes it can.
Can you?
Yeah. I think what I did, Mayor Andrew, was I worded the playgrounds amendment on the basis that in the order of this paper, that would have been considered first.
Or do you want?
I assumed from the discussions I had with Sean.
Can we have a cup of tea till 1:45?
Oh, no,
Okay,
no,
well, okay.
We've just had a cup of tea.
Okay,
We can, why don't we just kill it?
Could we, if we did the playground one first, it would make it simple.
Do the playground
the
first.
playground first would the playground one first would simplify.
okay.
That would work because also the technical people for this would also be here.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
The playground's
With
done.
your leave.
Okay,
Your worship.
so which? Okay, so it's, what page are we on? 280, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay. It's 280 is the, yeah. So the amendment, recommends the Mayor's recommendation as one, and it adds that in the long-term plan provide for 3 new playgrounds, and that is 2 destination playgrounds, one in year 3 and the other in year 5, and a pocket park playground in year 1 in Garden Place to coincide with the proposed redevelopment of Garden Place to be undertaken by local business. Now, when I saw the plan for Garden Place that Matt and Steve presented to us, there was in there a pocket, what I regard as a pocket park, which was building around the water attraction, and from memory, it was sort of like a built-in jungle gym. So I thought that there would be an opportunity to call that a new playground, and that it would fit within the budget. Well, if you follow down into 3, that up to 500,000 for the Garden Place Pocket Park, if this venture is approved and does proceed. And I would expect that 500,000 to be part of the 3.9 million estimate that was given. So that would be fiscally neutral to the recommendation on Garden Place. The second part of my amendment was for 2 destination playgrounds, one in year 3 and one in year 5, and the amendment asks for $2 million for those 2 destination playgrounds. And that's over and above what is currently in your budget, Mayor Andrew. And I have spoken with Lance, who feels quite comfortable that that $2 million cost could be taken from the $20 million Rototuna town centre, which means that if this amendment was acceptable to council to go out for consultation, it would not require any further funding than what is currently in your plan.
So, can I ask a question? Just for clarification, it would be 3 million for the mayor sort of contestable playground fund, if you like, plus 2 million specifically for 2 destination playgrounds, plus the Garden Place arrangement.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the 3 million and the 1.27 million is already in the mayor's, because it is part of a funding proposal.
Yes, yep.
So I guess the addition is the $2 million for
But
the 2
to come out of
destination,
Rototuna.
but to come out of Rototuna. So I'm not looking for another any further funds than what is currently in the overall plan, overall financial plan.
Well, just a point of clarification. I think we read on 750 rather than 500.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
sorry, have I said, oh, yeah, I'm reading from my original, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
So, yeah, sorry, so that's 750, but again, it's contained within the 3.9 million amount that was previously advised, which I think forms part of this budget.
Councillor Pascoe, could I ask, just for clarity for future record, if this does go through, that we include in brackets around C1 and C2 where the source of those funds are coming from?
Yes, okay.
Just for clarity. I'm not challenging the resolution, just for
I'm
clarity.
happy that you put those in now if you want to. I mean, I thought I'd made it clear with Garden Place that was subject to that venture being approved and proceeded with.
But that could mean incrementally as well, the way it's worded now.
Okay, fair comment. Yeah.
So, General Manager, are you comfortable that you can do the Rototuna Town Centre and Library and car park to a standard that we would expect, which I'm referring to what you've referred to at Te Awamutu, the new library there, something similar for this kind of money? Because you've now lowered by 2 million what you were doing out there. Your budget's $2 million shorter and we don't want you coming back for more money.
I would say it'll be of a standard, potentially a little bit lower than what was envisaged for the town square. The library and the community hub rooms will be what we envisaged. So we've had a look at it. We had $2 million in there for contingency, and the town square, obviously, until you do detailed design, but we would actually do the design that meets the CDP requirements but fits within the budget. So Helen and I have had a look at that, and we're reasonably confident. I'm not going to say I'm 100% confident that we can actually achieve what's in the Rototuna proposal for the 18 million instead of 20 million. There was quite a substantial contingency in there, so it was at the reasonably high end.
And does that include the fit out?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a finished package, turnkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we get to the Rototuna proposal, we've got some photos of what it might look like and that sort of.
You happy with that, Rob?
Yep.
Okay, and I'll just give you the floor first.
Just a couple of questions. Look, I'm being brave here. I'm not being brave actually. I am going to foreshadow, if the amendment in the motion is lost, a further amendment, and that would be the option 3. Oh, no, it wouldn't be option 3. It would be option 2, the full delivery of the Playgrounds of the Futures plan as outlined in the report. Probably realistic to know that won't get one of these amendments, or the motion or the amendment won't fail and I won't get a look in, but that's what I'm foreshadowing. But a question on on page 284, Lance, of the report, under point 29, the disadvantages of, you've listed there, the disadvantages of the full delivery of the Playgrounds of the Futures plan is an additional funding of 3.1 million over the 10 years. What's made up that additional funding?
The 2015-25 LTP funding did not, there wasn't enough in it to deliver the whole plan. So there was only a partial delivery of it. So that's basically getting up to that, pretty much what you're talking about, that 6.5 million overall.
Yeah.
So we had enough in there to do 50 to 60% of it, and my recollection from the previous LTP was that that would be revisited again during this LTP.
Yeah, that sounds right. And the table on that same page, under 31, says the figure assumes a 1/3 external funding component. Are you saying that that's built into those costs?
Yeah, at the top, the revenue, the 380 over every couple of years.
Is the 1/3? Yeah, okay. And just a question to Rob, if I don't get to put my further amendment in, I'm assuming you're keeping with that 2/3 public money, 1/3 external?
For the destination playgrounds.
For the two destination playgrounds in year 3 and 5.
Can I respond to that just to assist you on what the process would be? Then you can say whether you agree with it or not. So this is this is our contribution. So this is what will come out of our pocket. Lance's team already have a role and an active strategy about raising money for everything we do, and we would bring that into that. So we would naturally try and supplement any funding for a destination playground as best we can.
But would you seek 1/3 of the $1 million each for the playground? Or would it be on top of? Do we need to express that here or?
That'll be on top of.
So it would take it up to 1.3 million per playground.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'd be looking for our contribution to be $1 million on each playground, and whatever external funding we could get would add to the quality or the...
On top of.
Yeah, on top
On
of.
top of.
Yeah, that's what, sorry.
And that's been our modus operandi up until now, so that if we don't get the 1.3 million, then we'd build a playground to 1 million, bearing in mind that there might be some other components we can add later on if the community or philanthropic donor comes along, or a developer or something like that. So that's what we've done previously.
And do we have, with Te Huia at the moment being worked on, how is external funding going for that? Are we getting some wins?
For those, the two projects in the northeast, there was a target of, Helen, 245, so we've got $5,000 to go, and the community group has said they'd raise the 5,000.
All right. That's all my questions. I'll leave the rest for debate.
So without trying to elongate things, we've actually been quite successful on that front, so...
Oh, even blind Freddie could see that.
Hey, that's his saying. Mark,
But hiring
Oh,
man
so
could
are
feed.
we a debate or questions?
debate if you like. Good idea. Okay.
Do you want to
Okay.
carry on with debate, Angela? And
So, Mark, I'm just trying to move it forward. So if you drop your questions, that'd be appreciated.
did you have a
Jeff?
question?
Yeah, I do.
I'll
Jeff.
debate after. Yeah.
I have a question of Rob, just in regards to the pocket park playground suggested at Garden Place. I think it's quite important for me that that is a reasonable size playground. And I got an indication from staff last week that building a destination playground size playground in Garden Place may be in the order of 600,000 or 700,000, because it's not a completely from scratch sort of facility, and there might be toilet facilities around that. So I guess I'm just wanting some clarification that that's a reasonable sized park, and whether or not we can call it something
Yeah, I
larger.
was essentially relying on my recollection of the plans that had been presented to us by Messrs Stark and McLennan, and in that it would not be the same size as a destination playground, because I think it would be inappropriate for, in my view, that Garden Place would be inappropriate for a destination playground, given that it is predominantly used by city workers during the week, and destination playgrounds, as I see them around the city, are generally associated with jumping in a car or a bike or whatever, and actually going to those, which Garden Place would generally not be as easily accessed as, say, where the existing parks are, like the gardens and the lake. So I would see that being significantly smaller in size than, if you like, what might be a standard destination playground. Hence the word pocket park. Just to sort of separate. I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is that it's about 3 new parks in the city in that period, and I think it's about responding to the community. I know I'm getting a debate here, but I didn't want to do that. But it's about responding to the community concerns that I've had over the last few weeks about our need to recognise the younger people in the community.
I'm quite happy with the conversation, because if Jeff's not happy, and at this stage you could change the amendment, but I'm not sure. That's why I'm letting this go.
Could,
Just because we haven't started
That's
debate.
fine. That's fine.
Mayor Andrew, could I direct a question to Lance? just
Sure.
on this.
Yeah.
But there's 750K in there at the moment for a playground and garden place. That's correct, is it? If this is approved? Yeah? Up to, oh, okay, all right. Okay, well, I guess you're all right. For me, then, that probably changes my view on this amendment. Yeah.
It's kind of, if I could just explain, it's sort of conditional on the garden place development going ahead, and that's hopefully that's clear in the amendment, and it is being funded out of the $3.9 million estimate that has been given to us.
All right, sorry, Marion, can I just continue just a bit more on that?
Yeah.
We've got an indication from the guys, the architect involved in the Garden Place project, that there is room for a destination playground size there in Garden Place, which is why I was following those lines. That was the indication that we had, that they believed they could incorporate that into the design effectively. So,
So it'd be more a neighbourhood playground size. Yeah, there is, but
So-
I think what we're getting at is probably I think what Rob's and talking about is what was put forward by Steve and Matt. What they showed in those plans was fits nicely in that space. It may not be those actual components, and I think let's give us some wriggle room around. You know, it might be 400,000, but if you want to put in some wow factor so that you do attract families in there and what have you, then it might go up to 750,000. So I think the up to is probably prudent, but it may not be 750,000.
Can I just add a perspective in there? This is Rob and I have been toing and froing about this for a couple of days now, essentially, what I'm looking for is for the playground to be the predominant feature of Garden Place, and where we've been, you know, it's not like a lake destination playground or a gardens one or anything of that magnificence, because obviously you've still got to get other people in there. But what the intention of the original idea was so that we can attract families in there, have some car parks around it that will attract families down there for the day for cafes and all that kind of stuff. So bigger than a little playground, not as dominant and overpowering as a destination playground. So I guess we just don't have a name for something, but it's a work in progress. And I figured if we've got a decent budget in there and the playground is a predominant feature, then I can support Garden Place.
Of course, the library is also,
Yes,
also will be there, so that's another attractor that could bring family groups in.
Big time.
Yes.
And that's something that Maria and I have talked about, is working with the team designing that, is how do you interface the library frontage with the play area, because obviously if you've got families coming, they might make it a dual visit to go to the library and, you know, have a coffee and the kids go and play, and you see a bit of that happening now with kids playing in that fountain. So.
Rob, could I just guide you to page 310? So to the Mayor's recommendation I1, numeral 1, there's 3.915 million. Now, your 750,000 here and your C numeral numbers 1, where's that coming from, that 750?
From that 3.95 million.
Thank you, I just wanted, and it's specifically out of that money for the playground?
Yeah, and the reason I've done that, and I might not have been clear about it, the
No,
reason I've
okay.
done that was that they did have a pocket, what I saw as a pocket park in
Yeah.
their plan. Yeah.
So are you okay to change your words from pocket park to destination playground?
Yep, happy to do that.
And
Yep.
does that satisfy what you wanted?
Yep, okay,
Okay?
okay,
And
yep,
and that,
yep, that's fine.
okay?
Yep.
So we know the funding's there, you guys are aligned on what you want?
Yep, yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And you're good?
So if the Garden Place proposal doesn't go through, the two destinations in year 3 and 5 still do, don't they?
Well,
Yes,
if we vote this through, yeah.
Yeah,
If we vote that through now.
yeah.
Okay, so shall we go to debate?
Can I just
Yep,
suggest
sure.
also that it might be useful if Helen and her team were involved in the discussions with Matt and Matt and Steve to make sure that it's kind of in alignment with what your thinking is around the library and so forth. Because it may well be that they just had an idea of plonking something there just to make it look like a playground, and maybe we may want to have a bit more involvement to get an outcome that we think is appropriate given our knowledge of what's at the other destination playgrounds, because I know there's often there's often a theme or a difference, isn't there, between each of the playgrounds.
Yeah, so Brian, who was in before for the other, he's the guy who's been doing the design, so I've already been talking to him about that. So yeah, so they're open to that. So,
okay,
yep.
good. Yep.
Okay, so we're into debate. You've already had 3 goes at questions. Go again. Hey? Angela, don't worry, I'll look after you. Okay, so we're in debate, and I'm going to give the first speech to the mover of the amendment. So that's... No, I'm leaving it there. That's Rob, and then Angela, and then Mark, and then Jeff. Okay? No, I'm not.
He hasn't worried about the list yet, Councillor Dave.
And my name.
6 councillors you might put them all up above me as well.
Okay.
In support of my amendment or our amendment, I'd like to remind councillors that Hamilton has the 3rd youngest population in New Zealand. According to the 2013 census, we have a median age of 32, and there's only Queenstown and Auckland that has a younger population to us. And I think the trends that we're seeing is that we will remain predominantly a young person's city going forward. And when I look at what we're doing in our plan around community facilities, I see with the removal of the destination playground plan that we have in the current 10-year plan, is that we're moving quite a bit away from looking after the younger people in our community. I suggest also from my visits, and I'm now a frequent visitor to destination playgrounds with grandchildren, that no matter what time of the day I go to any of the destination playgrounds, there are always a reasonably large number of people using them. And it's not just the kids who are there on their own like it used to be when I went off to play in the park when I was a kid. They've got Nana and Granddad there, or they've got Mum or Dad, or they've got aunties and uncles, and they're even a meeting place, because you see them particularly at the gardens, you see them taking a chili bin with them, and it's maybe 2 or 3 families who are getting together and using the facilities and having a meeting place. So I think, person for person, and when we're looking at indoor courts, and we're looking at spending money on other sporting facilities, I think our destination playgrounds are very, very important, and even more so for a young city. So I think it's about a matter of getting the balance right. I appreciate that we have got limited funds, and I think this motion goes, this amendment goes part of the way to bringing back into the community some support by council for some destination playgrounds in the next 10-year plan. And I think while I think we'd all like to see more in there, I think 2.5 or 3 is a positive response given our financial circumstances. My only other point is that I think this also aligns with the Sports Waikato strategy, because it's also about promoting activity, whether it's the activity of children, the activity of parents, and not least of all the activity of grandparents, who can actually take the kids along and push them on the swing or do what other things that grandparents do. So look, I ask councillors for support on this. I appreciate we haven't got heaps and heaps of money to spend, but I think that this is a very good compromise to the people out there who are telling us that they want some realistic growth around this area in the 10-year plan, and I think it addresses the issue that they are seeking. Thank you.
Thanks. I do want to just start off with saying that actually it puts me and my constituents into a difficult position, because, as I alluded to, my preferred option and the people that I represent, their preferred option would be the full Playgrounds of the Futures plan. That was a great idea. Actually, that was a groundbreaking idea, because cities all around New Zealand are trying to follow us now, and I think that that's really significant for Hamilton. And it's really, really important to me to have a city that provides free family activities. And I know, as Councillor Taylor pointed out some time ago, it's not free, and it's not. He's right, but because the ratepayers pay for it. But in terms of their enjoyment of their rates, it's a real tangible way for them to be able to do that. And you know, destination playgrounds, the one on my side of town, on Dominion Road, in the school holidays, on the last day of the school holidays, I got stuck in traffic there trying to just get down the road, because there were so many children and so many families. They really are a winner. They really, really are such a winner. And children, you've heard all of this from me before, you're going to hear it again. Children with disabilities, families can stay there all day. They can use the public toilets, they can park off street, they can have a barbecue in some of them, there's shade in some of them. They really are an absolute winner for our city. This is a compromise for me, and it's a big compromise, because 4 areas of the city will miss out at this point in time: Te Manatu, Porritt Stadium, Ashurst and Moonlight Drive. However, this will at least give us Hillcrest and Glenview, which are actually desperately needed for the city. So it's a tough spot to be in sometimes to compromise, but I don't want the opportunity to lose 2 destination playgrounds. In principle, I think this is the wrong decision. In principle, we should have stuck to the full plan. I do want to use my last couple of seconds to acknowledge the community out there, and we will get submissions on this, I know that we will, and those that have championed this, this issue. But I also want to bring to the attention, and I'm not doing this to upset anybody, but when we did actually go out on the 21st of November, when we had a briefing, at that point in time, which was only a couple of weeks ago, the budget was only to upgrade 14 neighbourhood playgrounds. There was no mention of the word new. So I was pleasantly surprised when we did get the agenda on Thursday night that the word new had been inserted in there, and I think that that was a shift, and I think that was a positive shift. There's been a lot of angst around this issue, and I may have been the cause of that, but I do advocate for my community. But I am very appreciative of those members around the table that have seen and felt a shift in themselves to support this. And while it may only be 2 destination playgrounds and we'll still miss out 4, it is some way towards acknowledging the success. That may change over the course of submissions next year when public pressure comes on to deliver more than 2, but at this stage I am relatively comfortable that this is better than nothing.
Of you too. Mark, was it?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Angela. I remember the 21st of November quite well. I am a father of 3, and I speak on behalf of Max, Penny and Daisy, my children. Garden Place Destination Playground, or whatever it's going to be end up as, will be a fantastic showpiece, and it'll be a fantastic place to be. It is the only way I could have supported the Garden Place proposal, if we put a fantastic playground in there. I'm imagining a great place for families to come down during the day. I'm imagining it being a great place to set up a cafe as a result. I'm imagining it'll be an exercise to make it a safe place to incorporate cars and children, but I believe we've got the talent around the town to do that really, really well. It will be full. It'll be absolutely full if this goes right, and I'm very excited about it. City safety will be important. Most of us in this room have raised children, and there's one thing we all want, and that is the very best for our children and our grandchildren. My kids love destination playgrounds, but they want more. We all want a family-friendly city. Our Hamilton plan states that we aim to be a great river city, a great city to live, work, play and visit. Destination playgrounds are fantastic. The flaw is in the plan and that they incorporate all the play money. And I think with this day and age, we need to be a bit smarter rather. We need perhaps the next stage in that plan. What I'm suggesting with the part that we haven't talked much about, and that is the section A there, is that is it section A? Yes, it is. Yep, part A there, is that we go to the community every time we have a renewal and we say, hey, look, we've budgeted this much to renew the playground. What do you want? Have you got any better ideas? Because these communities know their own community better than even we know their community. So I want to be very, very serious about this. We ask them what they want. Communities know their own community better than we do. They may say, go for it, but they may say, we want this on this hill, or we've always dreamed on this over this gully, or we want a destination playground. It's not out of the question. In which case we say, sure, let's get together and raise some money and let's go for it. There may be more. There may be more. We're not closing the door on this. Who are we to say this is how you play? So what I suggest is threefold. Yes, obviously retention and renewal of all existing playgrounds. I would like to see within that a discretionary community play fund for areas in need of play facilities. But most importantly, number three, an active and up-to-date play strategy that enriches the play experience of all Hamiltonians of all ages, race and ability. I support destination playgrounds as a principle. What I think we need to move on from is perhaps the more restrictive existing destination playground plan that seems to assume that destination playgrounds are the only place where play can take place. It is a little bit cumbersome nowadays with this limited amount of money we've got, and there are areas that won't get renewals or even worse will lose their play facilities in the 20s. If kids want to play at the moment, they need to be put into a car and taken there. My inbox is riddled with people who can't get there because they actually don't have transport. Don't get me wrong, destination playgrounds serve a wonderful purpose and I'm very, very proud of them, but they are not the only solution. So I think what we've got here, and I think, Rob, you have saved this, so I congratulate you on this. I think you have saved destination playgrounds in this environment. Ironically, I think we need to take play a little bit more seriously. We need Hamilton to be a playful place for kids, for teenagers, for adults, able-bodied, disabled, all races, all cultures. I'm calling for a play strategy where the play is more than just playgrounds. Play is a pillar of our place. This city belongs to this generation and future generations, and we need to provide this city for the kids. For example, there's a soccer field over by Darjon and Gordonton. We're not doing anything with it. It's a paddock. Give it to the kids. Let them build huts. Make bike tracks until we get around to doing what we want to do with it. Years of fun being wasted in that big paddock at the moment. There's another park planned for River Road at the moment. It's a hay paddock. Give it to the kids. The muni pools are getting demolished. What a great flying fox opportunity. Fantastic. In the meantime, until we do something with it. I say we give Hamilton to the kids until we're ready to do something else with it. There's a hill in a park, a Bremworth Park. Fantastic hill. Let's put a trolley track on it. If there's a tree, hang a swing from it. If there's a gully, put a rope bridge over it. Of course, we need to make it access and disability friendly, but let's play in our space. So I'm calling for us, there'll be health and safety issues, but we work through those. I'm calling for us to take a more place-making approach where the community decides what it wants in its area. If they want a renewed facility, they get it. They want a hill park, they get it. They want a destination playground, they help us pay for it, they get it. So let's mobilise communities, empower communities, almost finished, and give them real ownership of their play spaces, because when you focus on place, you do everything differently. So thanks, Rob. I'll be supporting yours. It's the face, right?
The general manager looked terrified during a part of that speech.
Just thinking about my life sentence.
Okay, Dave. Did you want to go in? No, Dave.
Hey, look, I actually want to thank Rob for coming up with a rather neat way of encompassing about 3 different strands, including sort of saving money, or at least getting the money for extra playgrounds from another part of the budget, proposed budget. So I think that was quite elegant, shall I say. And the only thing that he we were hung up on for a while was this pocket park, and when we agreed to have a pocket destination park, everyone was satisfied. Seriously, if you have a look at the destination parks we have around the place, they are of quite different sizes. They're not all like the lake. Look at Minogue Park, that's actually that's smaller, I think, than the local playground up at Puketi. So in area, when you think of the track going round at Puketi, the cycle track thing that they've got there. So it's not the size that matters really. And there's some sniggers up the back there. But the other thing I want to talk about is that Angela said there's been a shift here, and she thanked people. I don't think there's been a shift. I've never heard anyone around this council table, and I say this to the other Angela as well, I've never heard anyone around the council table say they're opposed to destination playgrounds. What they have said, in some cases, and I will say, is there's a heck of a lot more to playgrounds than the traditional destination playground that some people are promoting at the moment. There are, for the reasons that Mark outlined, some local playgrounds that are also very important. And in front of this table here, I've heard far more presentations from parents with little kids and local communities about local playgrounds than I have heard about destination playgrounds. I've seen local playgrounds cut out, literally, physically, because of the destination playground policy being administered too rigidly to start with. There's been some desperate countermeasures to keep some local playgrounds when some of the equipment's been vandalised because we had a destination playground policy, and everything was being shifted from local areas to a handful of central locations, and that's wrong. So I'm pleased with Rob's amendment because that gets us around that problem. It does give you some big iconic destination playgrounds, which is important, and my grandkids love them too, but they also like going to all sorts of other playgrounds, just playing on the swing, just on the slide, just on the seesaw or whatever like that. So I think we need to cater for both sides in a city the size of Hamilton, and I'm mindful of the gap, those suburb lists that the staff gave us in a workshop a couple of weeks ago, which talked about 5 or 6 suburbs with no playgrounds at all. Well, my priority wouldn't be to get 2 more destination playgrounds, and that's fine, that'll happen, but I'd like to see in year 1 starting to get some of those gaps filled up with local playgrounds. And I think we can under this proposal.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yes, I think our Angela, summarised it quite well in terms of, obviously what is the ideal, and I think Councillor Pascoe has given us a proposal that we can now put out to the people, which is a combo of significant destination playgrounds and neighbourhood playgrounds. I'm a member of the board of Parent to Parent, and obviously that is catering to advocate for families where the children, young ones, have some form of learning issue or disability. And so obviously there needs to be a lot of focus on how playgrounds cater for a wide range of children with different challenges, and I also apply that to neighbourhood playgrounds as well. And I think what's been slightly missing in this debate is we assume, of course, that families have 2 cars and they can drive anywhere in the city to a destination playground of their choice. The constituents that some of us represent, including Angela and Dave and others, we have 1-car families, and the breadwinner, in this case, goes off to work, and often it is the mum that is with the young kids without transport. So that's where the neighbourhood facilities, the neighbourhood playgrounds, become important as well. So it's trying to get this mix and match. So I think we're going to put up a proposal, and I want to sort of, from respectful consultation from people, just get a feedback of what is works, what is the combo. So I thank Councillor Pascoe. I do make a point with the garden place. I do have a worry around some of the social behaviours. So I think the danger there, and I want to flag this, is with the playground destination and garden place, we must ensure that families are not frightened off with antisocial elements, and we know what we're talking about. So we're going to have to do we may have to do some city safe provision there. We've got to look at some of that mix as well. UNICEF and other organisations, I think, have unfairly criticised His Worship the Mayor. I assume that UNICEF and other organisations have cottoned on to the profoundly historic proposal of His Worship the Mayor, this is the first mayor and the first council in some time that is now proposing to fund a north-east library and aquatic centre. Now, if I used UNICEF principle of an environment, a society that is embracing of children and young families, I think a free public library, an aquatic centre and a town centre and a community centre fit that bill. So the one reservation I have about this, Councillor Pascoe, is hopefully we can get away with the $2 million offset, all right? But I think that neatly encapsulates the choices we make in this chamber. Of course we want libraries, of course we want destination playgrounds, but then we have to work out where we rank and how we fund and how we prioritise. And I don't think we should lose sight in this consultation process, because I think the proposal, if it goes through, of the Mayor's initiative to fund, after many, many years, a library, town centre, aquatic centre in the northeast is profoundly significant, and I said it's very complementary, if you like, to the whole destination playground green space narrative, because it is actually embracing young families and children and young parents. And so I think hopefully through this rigorous, debate and discussion, we're landing something that may be acceptable to our community. And trust me, 1, 2, 3 destination playgrounds, a new library, that is really good progress in my view.
Councillor Paula.
Thank you. When Councillor O'Leary discussed with me her proposal to put the motion for all of the destination playgrounds, I was happy to second that, because I do believe it's a debate worth having, and I do believe that there is a groundswell of public support for destination playgrounds, so I was going to be more than happy to do that. And should this one be lost, which I very much doubt it will be, I'll still be happy to do that. Playgrounds absolutely, in my view, are part of the livability factor of cities, and we've got to put them in. There's just, as all the previous speakers before me have said, I won't reiterate the good reasons why we need areas to play. I also believe, however, that aspects of good urban design can be play elements too. Prior to the changing of Garden Place to that lower wall that we've all enjoyed sitting in the sunshine on just lately, which has been lovely in our short lunch hour, prior to that, when it was a higher wall with seats, you used to constantly see children holding the hands of their parents, walking the entire length of the wall and jumping off it and jumping on it. And they will play when space is created in a playful way. I really admire what Ludo Campbell-Reid has achieved for Auckland and the Viaduct. They've got a few pocket parks in there, sure enough, but they've also got playable urban elements. When you think about Claudelands, that piece of artwork, the steel piece of artwork, how many times do you go to an event at Claudelands and see children jumping over it, running over it, in, out, playing tag around it? It's fantastic. So I do hope that everything that we do in terms of new design in the city factors in, those kind of playable elements. Just want to flag that I am going to, in the unfunded proposals, I'm going to talk about opening up the library. And before you say this is not on topic, it absolutely is, because I think Lance made the connection before about engaging Garden Place. And if we're going to have a pocket park or playable elements in Garden Place, that is a very good idea. But I think what will make that work better is if the library and the play space work together, so you can enjoy an indoor-outdoor experience with the library. And look, small things do matter. When I was lucky enough to open the Steel Park playground with Lois Livingston's daughter, who Lois, of course, having pushed for that for many, many years, that community was so delighted. And if you go any Saturday or Sunday in Hamilton East or outside of school hours, that tiny little playground with, I think it's got, 6 pieces of equipment or 5 or something? It's absolutely full of children enjoying themselves. And, of course, then they go across and have a Duck Island ice cream, and why wouldn't you? So, yep, no, I'm all for this. I'm going to vote for the amendment. Failing that, I will support Councillor O'Leary in having a further debate about destination playgrounds.
Councillor Leo.
Yeah, look, I'll just be very quick on this one. I'm probably the only one who is not going to support the playground and garden place. And my reasons for this, of course, is that when I look at the booze-fuelled punters on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and I think of our great people up at the A&E, I don't believe they needed any more patients going in there because of the damage in that which I think they'll cause to themselves in their alcohol and fueled state as they play on the playground. I think the maintenance in that will be huge because of the damage which will be caused to that playground. And that's the only reason, of course, which I will be voting against this particular amendment.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote. We're voting on the amendment.
What's happened to it?
The
The
amendment,
amendment is carried, 10-4, 2 against.
the amendment becomes a substantive motion. We're voting on the motion.
The amendment is a substantive motion is carried, 11-4, 1 against.
Can I read something from the social media comment? The white-haired guy with glasses
Spoke well from the bit I saw, no idea who he is. No, that's you. It was you.
There could be everybody in the room.
It was just, it was just after you spoke. It was just after you spoke, Rob,
Noting
but
that Councillor Leo doesn't have glasses.
actually, you're right. Could be anyone in the room. The white-haired guy.
Okay, so I think it's appropriate now to go straight to the garden place, Lance. So we'll take it as read. What page are we on, Lance? Okay, so if there's no argument, we've talked this one inside and out. Can we go straight to debate? Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Probably follows on from the last discussion. I got the impression at the briefing that Matt and Steve did, that they really wanted to take a fair bit of control over the delivery of the plan. And I just wonder, following on from our discussions around the playground and Leo's comments, and perhaps the fact as to what might happen with the library and so forth, that we have an opportunity to engage with them around how that playground portion might get to.
I'm going to put that in my motion. So if we can get the motion up, and I'll just add to the motion that the $750,000, I just want to lock that over.
Yeah, so that it's part of the three, yep.
Yep, so can you put words to that, please, CE? And also, I think that it's appropriate that our general manager of playgrounds is basically involved in
helping with the design and...
Yeah,
Yep.
you know, because we want it up to our standard.
Yep.
Okay, so I think that both those things need to be included in the motion.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
And it just sort of covers it all off. So we'll go straight to, I'll let you go first.
Oh, to speak on debate.
Yeah.
No, I do have questions.
Oh, sorry, okay, fine. Okay, yeah.
In terms of who will manage the project?
It'll be between Stark Properties and, I think that it should be run through Brian White Architects, actually, because these guys all use Brian White, so I think that would be the appropriate
Sorry, concerns are immediately going off in my head. They already were, that we haven't worked this out. We're committing public money.
So this is only a funding allocation. A full report will have to come back to allocate how we're going to run it.
Okay.
Okay, so does that need to be added to the motion?
That value of $750,000 Our procurement policy requires us to bring it back.
No, we're talking,
No, we're
Andrew's
talking-
asking about the whole project.
The whole project.
Externals want to run it, want to do the work and run the contracts, but Andrew's saying under what entity? That would have to come back as a report, wouldn't it?
Yes, and we can have a C on that if you want, councillor Ange.
Well, I won't be supporting it, but I'm raising some concerns about who's going to manage the project, who's further questions around risk if something goes wrong.
Well, this is only for the funding allocation, we aren't.
But haven't we worked that? Surely we've worked that out. If you're going to commit public money.
We're committing $1.7 billion of public money without having a,
Yeah, but we're running those projects.
not in all cases.
All right, I'll carry on with my questions then. So it's public money and it's public space. So if something goes wrong, who accepts the risk of that? So I guess, Richard,
Sorry,
you're going to be the one, answering these questions. So did you hear me? So who manages the risk? If something goes wrong in terms of all sorts of things, cost overruns, something goes wrong with the infrastructure, the contract, public liability, who's going to pick up the cost of all of that risk?
Ultimately, we're making a contribution at a fixed amount, and if we were running this program, we'd be going out with a fixed contract. We would be expecting that, I see that whilst they might heavily influence, we can't contract out of our procurement guidelines. We'd have to go through and expect them to follow similar procurement guidelines. So it would be a fixed contract, fixed amount. The risk will be tied up in the contract.
And the other thing we have to work through is if we're going to be accepting assets which have been built by a third party, that we're satisfied with their assets coming over to us of a standard which doesn't provide any health and safety risk, and also we have to look at the maintenance aspects of that too. So Chris and I are keen to be heavily involved in this.
So,
Could I just interject there, because I did raise with Chris whether or not we would qualify for a subsidy on the roading part, and he thought we might. Oh, Chris is here, sorry. I did mention to you at the time as to whether or not we might qualify, because there's a part of a road being built.
I think it would be extremely unlikely.
Okay, all right, okay.
So moving back to my question, so we're unsure who will manage the project. We think possibly they will. We're unsure who will accept the risk if something goes wrong in terms of public liability, in terms of cost overruns, all of that. So that's all to be worked out because we don't know now.
Yeah, so this is a recommendation for a funding provision. So we need to bring a paper back to support the allocation of the funds, and that will include all the detail and the risk mitigation. Even at that point in time, council can make a decision not to proceed. This is just basically making sure we've got a gap for the money to fund it in the future.
Yeah, it's a big project though, and there's not a lot of love out in the community for this. So it does concern me that the work hasn't been done, and that my questions can't really be answered.
But it's no different than we've done with previous 10-year plans when there's just been
So
a
I'm not-
one-page.
yeah. Look, my advice would be that you need to cover that off in that recommendation. So have we thought about what events will be disrupted while the work happens? Who manages that? Do we manage that, or do whoever's managing the project manage that?
So, again, this is a funding provision. A paper will be coming back to address all these.
With respect though, these are valid questions and important questions.
At a funding stage, I don't think that relevant until we do the paper where there'll be a whole lot more information. So, but one thing, Councillor Ange, you're identifying is there needs to be a paper to come back. I'm suggesting that we throw C, that a paper comes back to council with the mechanics of how this is delivered, which you would do anyway, but I'm comfortable if you want to lock that into the recommendation.
There has to be some accountability in there for that. So also then, I would have a further question around what other council resources will be used to support this project outside of the funding of 3.9 million. So are we helping in other ways? Staff time, resource consents?
Staff time, definitely, as I said.
And the resource consents will come out at 3.95 million. Or how many million it is? Yeah, 3.95 million.
So have we done costings of staff time?
No, but we do have experience from similar sized projects. So, and Chris and I would talk about that, and as Richard said, obviously we'd bring that back in the full proposal for council to have a look at.
Sorry, just Lance, any staff time that's associated with building and assets capitalised towards the assets will be coming out of 3.95 million anyway. So the total budget cost will be 3.95 million. We will bring a paper back which will address those risks, and I'm hoping that the mover and the seconder are comfortable with a C to that effect, and which is our normal practice anyway. And we will cover those risks off. A full basically that a business plan or business case is prepared and brought back to council prior to commencement of this project, which will cover your questions off, Councillor Ange.
We were effectively only shown one design. Did staff have an opportunity to give some feedback on that design, and if so, what was it, and was it incorporated?
There was some feedback given when they came up with initial, and I think councillors went to the building down by the cafe down on the left-hand side of Garden Place there. So I know I gave, Valera, I gave quite a bit of feedback. And yes, that was taken on board. I think there needs to be more discussion. Look, the two gentlemen involved and Brian, obviously the architect, they'll be the first ones to say that there needs to be more discussion around that. There needs to be a whole bunch of feedback. I think, as Councillor Rob talked about in the previous item, that the size, the look, the design of the playground needs to happen. If council decides to do something with the library facade, as Councillor Paul is going to put up an amendment when we get to that, then that would have to be incorporated. So I think this is early days, and obviously we'd need to do, as we do with any project, is work on a more detailed design before actually looking for council's final tick off on all those other things, and before any project starts.
Okay.
And just going back to an earlier question, sorry, Councillor Ange, one of the examples we've had, it wasn't quite the same, but has similarities, is the rec centre at Rototuna. A third party managed that, which was the Ministry of Education. We entered into a memorandum of understanding in terms of risk allocation and so forth. If, and I'm putting a big if, we agree that a third party should manage this process, would enter into a similar memorandum of understanding process about risk allocation and so forth. But that would be council's decision on how we manage that, and that will come back as part of the business plan or business case.
Big question here. Why did we only ever see one proposal? Why didn't we go out to the public or put something out for tender? Why was it just this one proposal?
They approached us.
But if it was something that we wanted to do, why didn't we go out for further ideas? I know seems to be a few floating around.
I wasn't involved in that aspect.
There was supposed to be two proposals come through when the other group, who was Chow Hill via Brian, saw what these guys were doing. He felt that he couldn't do a better job and offer us a better plan than what they offered us.
That he couldn't do a better job?
No, they felt that Brian felt that he was happy with what the others were offering.
This is Brian Squire.
So
Brian Squire, yeah. So at that stage he didn't put his proposal on. Sorry?
Withdrew from field.
Yeah.
Okay. Just last question, and then I'll leave it for debate. In terms of activating the space, that's actually where the key issue is the lack of people. So are we going to, if council decides to approve this, are we going to support the upgrade, and I certainly don't support it, with some kind of funding, in terms of like returning things like Summer and Garden Place, any kind of event like that, because it's at the end of the day, it's not how pretty something looks actually. I mean, it has an impact, but you have to have things going on. You have to have activity. So we're planning that?
No,
Why not?
that's not what this proposal's covering.
Excuse me for sniffing. Okay, I'll leave the rest for debate, thank you.
James, you debating or question? Debate, thank you. Okay, James, you're on.
Right. I'm not supporting the Garden Place upgrade. Look, a small playground in the middle is one thing, which I do have fears like Leo will turn into a vagrant wonderland during the day and night. But with the risk of with the risk of repeating myself, if you vote for an upgrade of Garden Place here, you are not listening to the ratepayer. There is a huge groundswell out there that do not want us touching Garden Place yet again. And if you vote it through, you're not listening. I was voted in to listen to the ratepayer. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you. As I said during the playground debate, I wasn't going to support Garden Place, but it's going to look quite different to what has been put out there now. I think I am listening to the ratepayer because the ratepayers, a lot of them, very loudly want a destination playgrounds. And I figured putting a destination playground there is going to serve so many purposes. It is going to bring people there, which is primarily what we want. People bring people, and people, at the moment, we have the vagrancy issue, etc., largely because there's no one else there. We bring more people, more families in, and it flushes the place through, and it becomes a much more exciting place. My vision for this now with a playground there is for cafes down the sides, where families can come and have a snack while their kids are playing, etc. And also the idea that we were talking about over lunchtime is why don't we start looking at the idea of getting some garden furniture or some outdoor furniture and putting it in Civic Square. So that's where people can stop on a day like this. Can you imagine sitting out there having lunch with music playing quietly? It'll just be fantastic because that's a really underutilised place. And I think with the new look that we're proposing for Garden Place being predominantly largely playground, then we start moving the public over into that Civic Square, which can't take anything heavy because it's actually the roof of a car park, but it could take garden tables and people over there. So I think I was firmly in Angela's camp on it beforehand and was listening to the ratepayers who said, we don't want you messing around with Garden Place. I think that was largely because they saw what was planned. And that's no disrespect to the guys who planned it because they did a fantastic job. I'm really excited about it being a playground and families once again being in Garden Place. I'm really excited about that. That's all I got to say about that.
Councillor Enge.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Look, I'm going to vote against the motion. I have some serious reservations about how the whole process for this has come about. We are local government. We are held to account by our residents and our ratepayers. And we have procurement processes in place to protect us from perception of cronyism, and that is the perception that's out there that concerns me greatly. Putting that aside for a moment, Garden Place hasn't had all of the redos that people think, and I, strangely enough, will continue to support that, even though I won't support this. We've only seen one proposal. My understanding of what, with the Chow Hill discussion, isn't the same as Mayor Andrews. And I just don't think we've managed this at all well. It may be better than what's there, sure, but it's not the best, and it's not the right way to do it with a big ticket item of 3.9 million. There's a whole lot of ways you can skin a cat, and this isn't the smartest way to do it, even putting aside all of the concerns, great concerns that I have with the process that's being followed. It's really important that people are able to follow along with the decisions that their local government makes, and that's us. And this has been confusing and it's been unclear, and the perception out there is not a good one, and that concerns me deeply. While I supported the previous decision around the destination playgrounds, I don't support this. Having a playground in Garden Place is nowhere near enough to tip me over the edge because of the processes, etc. Activating a space is exactly that. It's about activating a space. It's about putting people in there. Summer and Garden Place did quite a bit of that. The Christmas activities that we've got now does quite a lot of that. But until there are shops that you want to go to and the edges of Garden Place are rejuvenated, I would rather put in $1 million into an events program, an outstanding events program for Garden Place, Civic Square in the centre of the CBD. Imagine what you could do with that. But that's not happening. We don't have an activation plan, but instead we're going down this track. And I think it's a big, bad decision, and I don't think the public is going to support it.
Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yes, this is what a draft long-term plan is, this proposal. And as an individual, I do have a degree of scepticism. However, I want to listen to the feedback. I want to listen to the submissions. And I also want to balance the ability of businesses around Garden Place to do good business, to pay the rent, to pay their rates. What is the best combo for them? This is our town square versus the wider community interest. What must we do? This is, to me, part of the ongoing discussion around the Central City Transformation Plan, which started under the previous mayoralty and administration. And I recall even conversations with previous Mayor Julie about, what is the right combo? Should we perhaps have car parking along, one side of Garden Place? So it seems to me that all you're doing is you're putting a draft funding provision proposal. You're obviously are going to continue once you've had the feedback from the public and very, very importantly from the investors, from the ratepayers and the business owners around in that precinct as to whether you proceed with a particular proposal or a modified proposal or not. If you say we kill it now, then I don't think that's necessarily the wise thing to do. I certainly want to see the detail. I certainly want to listen very, very closely to the submission process. I also observe overseas experience. What is the combo? And look at the town squares in Germany and Europe, where you have on one day you have the market, another day you have a fair, another day you have parking at night, you have parking outside the restaurants, outside the shops. That whole Civic Square Garden Place, I don't think we've reached personally the ultimate outcome that we want. All we're doing is we're voting to put this out to public consultation, and I will certainly be listening very, very closely and genuinely to all of that consultation.
Councillor Paula.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. I also won't be voting for this motion, although there are lovely elements of the proposal. First of all, I would like to say that I think hats off to the developers that brought this to us. I commend them for their ideas, and I also appreciate them for the investment and revitalisation of the CBD that they're part of. There's some fabulous things going on with those same developers. In fact, I'm really, really, really excited about Victoria on the River, having gone on the site visit the other day. And I think that will certainly draw people closer to Garden Place. But I'm absolutely on track with James. He's right about the fact that we are on this incredible financial constraint, and we should be listening to the feedback, and we should remember that we're going to have to make some priorities. Yes, we want to hear feedback from all the public. I do too. And if I've made a decision and I'm proven wrong about it, the public feel differently, then that's fine. That's absolutely good. But we do have to draw some priorities. Otherwise, at the end of the night, we're going to be way over our financial window. We just are going to be, and then we're all going to be thinking, crikey, we've put all this stuff in, what can we take out? So, and we've already been here for nearly 12 hours. So I have flagged that I do believe we should be a good tenant in Garden Place, and that's partly where I'll come from in my argument when we get to the front of the library. I actually support Angela in the event space too, because in my capacity as chair of community, and I know a number of you have attended these as well, we've been to some fabulous events in Garden Place. Zeal holds them regularly. The ethnic community holds events from time to time in Garden Place, which light things up. And one day I went through and it was absolutely chocker with 3-on-3 basketball. Absolutely energetic space to walk through at that time. But most of the time it isn't, because, in my view, what's going to get people back into Garden Place, what's going to happen to Garden Place to make it better is people. We need people working in town, we need people living in town, and we need good shops and experiences in town. I'll go back again to some of these fantastic developers. Hats off to them who are developing inner city apartments, who are opening up new really high-end boutique shops and experiences. That's exactly what should be happening, and thank goodness that they're doing that. You know, there's some nice aspects about Garden Place. We were sitting down there before in the evening. It was quiet and quite peaceful and lovely. There's a beautiful tree. I was just hearing that the tree is just stunning, and I'm looking forward to getting out because it's dark now. I'll be able to see it. The Christmas tree. It's fabulous, but it's quite lonely, really. It's just there by itself at the end, being fabulous. There's not a great crowd of people around it. So until we get people to enjoy these things, we're not going anywhere fast. We could go and sing carols around it later.
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Siggy.
But you're singing or mine?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Look, I've heard people saying about Garden Place, I don't want you to change it, but I don't like it. So, you know, I don't want to go there. It's dangerous. You hear all sorts of things about Garden Place. And I put my submission in last time, I wanted to add value to the last change, and they told me it was a done deal and they didn't want my input. So that put me right off. But I always come back, so I can't help it. Look, one of the things I just thought about is I talked about Ludo Campbell-Reid before, and one of the things, he's a design champion for Auckland City Council, and I would love him to come down here sometime and do a workshop in Hamilton to even give us some ideas as well. But I want to support this motion because I want to hear the feedback from the public. And one thing that excites me is local business people with the rungs on the board that are wanting to do something here in the city. They love the city. They don't just want to pillage and rape it, like some property owners or property developers do. They really care about the city, and they really want to do some good stuff here. So I would like to know what the people of the city think about this. We need the energy in Garden Place. And why do we have all these restaurants and cafes along Victoria Street? I mean, they're breathing in all the fumes. You know, there's cars going up and down, but all the people are there because there's energy, there's action there. And people feel somehow safer than in this big space of Garden Place where there's actually no action. So I'm excited about the playground. I would love to see a bit more for adults, a playground, maybe even a little walking track so we get, fit in between our ice creams or coffees that we're going to have in these new cafes. I'm excited that when we open the library, the front, that there will be a cafe. And so, there's a lot of things that we could really, to energize Garden Place. So I support it because I actually want to know the feedback from the people. Thank you.
Councillor Robb.
Thanks, Chair. Look, it's unfortunate that Garden Place has had so many iterations in recent years. When I was a kid, and for many, many years, and Martin will probably remember, it was a car park, and it was a car park for a long, long time. Okay. The CCTP to me was about encouraging business to stay and new business to come into the city. This, the latest possible iteration of Garden Place that's been offered to us, will have strong input from the business community with some of their skin in the game. This particular business group not only brings money to the table, but also strong property development skills and reputation to the project. And I think Ziggy has covered that off to some extent. I believe their skills and the style that they will bring to work alongside our senior staff in bringing a good practical outcome to the project. I would expect, and it is accepted, that there will be ongoing criticisms on any update that we and or the business community do to the city square. Like Angela, Mark, and I think I've got everyone, Paula, I would like to see ongoing activity in the square. And, you know, if we did have a joint venture with business to do this next iteration, we might end up with some joint venture around bringing that square alive, because not only will it be in our interest to do that, it may well be in their interest to put some activity, regular activity in the square, like you see in Federation Square in Melbourne and other cities around the world. So, whilst I don't think the situation we've got is perfect, and whatever the outcome is, it's not going to be perfect for everybody, I really would like to take this out to the community. And I'd like to take it out where we've got the full facts about what the project actually is, and the fact that the business community is involved. Show them the plans so they're not sort of going on half-baked facts that they think the the square is going to look like, and let's go out and consult and see what feedback we get. I mean, this is hopefully the beginning of good working relationships with those who operate businesses in the city, and this is what the CCTP was all about, was bringing council and the business people together in appropriate joint ventures where we could both see benefits for the business as well as for the community. So I'll be supporting this endeavour now to go out and consult with the community on this project. Thank you.
Councillor Leo.
Thanks. Maybe the time of the night or something, but I'm just wondering whether we really know what to do with Garden Place, to tell you the truth. Some of us want to put it into a road for cars to drive through. Some of us want to turn it into a car park for cars to park there. We're going to have kids playing in parks there, and we're going to have all sorts of things there. What I think we've really got to realise, of course, is I thought we were here to actually try and reduce the 15% rate rise. Well, we're not doing a very good job of it at this point in time, that's for sure. What I think we have got, though, is we've got definitely a champagne drinker's taste, and we're on a beer drinker's income. This is our problem. So I will not be supporting this Garden Place. I think I've made it well clear of my views of what should be happening there.
Councillor Dave.
Yeah, look, Leo, you just convinced me to go the opposite direction. The way that Rob's talking about, I recognise there are some problems there, but some of the beers that I saw in the supermarket the other day are pretty highly priced, more expensive than the wine, actually. So his argument didn't convince me at all. I think, what was it, Moa Lager, I think, was damned expensive. So I went for some cheap plonk. Seriously, people who say they want to hear what the public has to say on this, which a couple of people have said, you're going to need to put it out for consultation. That's one thing. Two, I think Leo said we didn't know what we want to do with Garden Place, and he listed driving through, parking and playgrounds, and that was good, because all three is what we want to do with perhaps with the area, plus have it as an activated space generally for people to walk through, and that nothing we've done has been successful so far, that's true, but this is also the first time we've had business owners around there, around the edge of the area, that have actually been involved in trying to fix that, and I think it's worth taking it to the next step. If at the end of that, if people are not convinced, that'd probably be one of the first things I would not vote for, because of the sorts of reasons that James brought up. But a point that Siggy said is very true. People say, I don't want you to do anything with it, but I hate the way it is now, you know, and they're confused themselves. And I think the community deserves having those people see some options before they make a final decision. And that's why I'm going to support us going to the next step, with all the elements that we've talked about here being possible within that.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
The motion is carried 7-4, 5 against.
Okay, we'll now go to page 293. Sorry? Yeah, I'd like to get this section finished. We're getting down to, after this one, we're getting down into the smaller issues and get the proposals, which is on page 9 and 10, wrapped up tonight. And then we'll go on to, then we're fresh, we've wrapped that all up, and then we can go on to the final wrap up and stuff on Monday.
Can we get a quick update?
After this one. There's two more. This one.
What number are we at?
Number Hamilton Gardens.
292.
292.
Nearly losing the plot.
Okay, so I think that I've been told, Jeff, you've got a amendment for this one.
I have.
Could we have that up, please?
So you're moving with the deputy mayor,
Yep.
and then councillor Jeff's got a.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't listen.
Okay,
It's Hamilton Gardens page.
would you like to start explaining that as soon as we get it up, please?
I would.
You got a seconder?
The 7.
Yeah, just be useful for me to have a look at it, actually. It was a long time ago when I looked at it. Oh, can I just wait till it goes up so I can
Yeah,
remind
sure.
myself? Right, okay. So, yeah, so it's reasonably different from the mayor's option. You look at the dollar figures, they're significantly different. So what it aims to do is to continue the momentum at Hamilton Gardens, providing a sum of funding of 7 million capital and 2.3 million operating expenditure, which is significantly less than in the mayor's version, which was 18.27 million. So this sum of money to allow it to begin development of the first 4 gardens and some of the associated infrastructure. And my feeling for this is that, my sense is that there's been a lot go on at the gardens in recent years, and I just feel that we can slow things down a little and also save a bit of money. Because as it is, there's 2 gardens opening next year and then another 2 opening in 2019. So what I'm suggesting is, rather than all 13, let's put up a bit of money so they can start work on the first 4 and some of the associated infrastructure. As a separate thing, I'm suggesting that we continue the $10 targeted rate rather than an entry charge.
Just on that second point that Jeff's raised there, I think we should have 2 separate discussions here. One about the type of budget / program we want, and 2 about the funding target, the funding mechanism, I should say, because there's some options on that which that are quite separate. So could we deal with A and what it amends first, and then come to and B and how that's handled second?
Yeah, I'm certainly very happy for them to be handled separately. That's fine.
So can I ask you, how many gardens are included? I can't quite read your...
Right, it should say 4...
It's just ducked down.
Oh yeah, just if we go down, it should be enough for the first 4 of the 13, and some of the associated infrastructure.
Could I ask a question just on that? Is it possible still to have the program of 13, but 4 are only addressed? I'm not sure whether you mean to still have the program of 13 that it's been drawn up, but in the 10-year plan only addressed 4 of them. But there's still that underlying program of someone came up with
We
a,
make them unfunded.
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So
Yeah.
of the 13 gardens, 4 being
Yeah.
Yeah.
taken for a value of 9.
Yeah, but knowing that there was, the other 9 was sitting there with a concept.
It's still in
Yeah,
the plan.
yeah,
still in the
Dave, that's certainly how I envisaged it. I mean, it's a vote of confidence and it allows them to continue fundraising and all that sort of stuff, but kind of says, look, at this stage, here's enough for this many, you know, but we support the rest.
James?
Amendment.
Yep, just hold on before you do.
James.
Jeff, with my motion,
Yeah.
hang on, can we not second it because it's locking things in while we're discussing, please? Is that all right, James? Can we just hold off for a minute? Is that okay? Yep. With my motion up the top, can we just... Okay, so it's in the book on page 292. Jeff, if I move my entry fee down to $10, but go with your funding motion, would you go with that as the motion?
With the entry fee?
With the entry fee of $10, so that people outside the city are paying their way, but use your proposal for the 4 gardens with the lower amount?
I won't be supporting the entry fee, Andrew.
You won't be? Okay.
I'm happy to pull B out of it, if you like, and for us to handle that.
Deputy Mayor, the rest of us agreed that we'd separate them into 2 parts. One was the program and the other part was the funding mechanism. Just because there's those different variations. So we're going to talk about, we thought we'd talk about the program first.
Yeah. I'm happy
Okay, look,
to pull B completely out of it, if it
We'll
helps.
just have a water break until 10 past and we'll just get together and see if we can come up with one Yes, Alan, we're into debate. You're on.
I'm on.
Go. Go. You're
Go
on.
nice and quick.
You're talking, debating.
Did you withdraw?
Sorry, firstly, I need to... Where's my Deputy Mayor?
Your Eminence.
Would you...
Look, I think the numbers are really finely tuned, but I think I'll yield.
Thank you.
You probably could have just got it through, but I'll yield.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff, debate.
Andrew, so there's my amendment up there. So look, like everyone, I think I'm immensely proud of the gardens and the work the team, Peter Segal and our team here does, making it what it is. My sense though is that there's been a huge amount going on there for some time now. The children's playground, various other work, 2 gardens I believe opening next year and 2 more opening in 2019, which is fantastic. But it is a lot. And amidst all this, we've now got a plan for 13 new gardens and various other infrastructure. My intention here has just been to slow just down a little, take a bit of a breath, and I suggest that the amount of funding in my amendment gives the gardens confidence and surety that we're backing them and that we support their plan for 13 gardens. But it also helps us a bit out by removing a bit of funding and it's just helping us with the budget. I'm not a supporter of charging for the gardens at this stage, I'm sorry. I think we've had a pretty clear steer from volunteers and from experts and from tourism leaders that there would at this stage be more in adding to the attraction at the gardens before instituting a charge. I think there is a risk that we could kill the golden goose. I believe the community is happy to keep putting $10 in at a targeted rate because they can see what they're paying for. There is a transparency there. So just to summarise, I think the amendment gives us the best of both worlds. It removes some capital and operating expenditure from our plans, but it also gives, I think, the momentum that's necessary for the gardens to continue to grow the fantastic asset that they've got there. Thank you.
Question, please, Mayor. I'm sorry to do this, but because this was drafted in the break while everybody was in various huddles, where's the $9.3 million reduction from infrastructure coming from? Coming from what bit of the community infrastructure?
So the Mayor's original recommendation is for 18.273 million net capital and operating expenditure. So what I'm putting up there is around about half of that.
Okay, so you're not taking it off any other project, you're just reducing the proposal, is that what you're saying?
Yep,
I'm reducing the proposal and basically saying that the money, sorry.
So the effect of Councillor Jeff's resolution is that, say, currently we've got $80 million put aside for community infrastructure within this 10-year plan, which is what we originally started with, 80 million. Mm-hmm. Yep. The effect of this is that reduces that by $9.3 million. And by reducing this, Councillor Jeff is not expecting that the money will be used in other projects. He's saying he wants an overall reduction in the amount allocated to community infrastructure.
So it could potentially have an impact on some other form of community infrastructure. I just want to be clear on
it will not have an impact on the 10-year plan budget proposal because he's providing the evidence to shrink it, as in the gardens, but it means there's no additional capacity created to add other things in through this resolution.
Other things like those. So if we agree to this and there isn't any increase to the 80 million, we may as well forget about coming back and discussing those because there's no money. Is that what you're saying?
No, you can, if you want to increase that, it means...
Contestable. I guess that's what he's saying, isn't it?
The rest of it's contestable.
Why are we discussing things that aren't part of the gardens and the garden project?
Okay.
I think, David, because it says, because I would have thought that would have said, and that the overall budget for the gardens was reduced by 9.3, but I think Paul has identified it doesn't say reducing funding for the gardens, it says reducing funding for the community infrastructure, which is the gardens and a whole lot of other things. I think is what you're saying.
Well, I want some clarity
No,
about
that's
where
the
those...
Because that
That's the
That
intent.
sort of, that is the intent, is
Yeah,
it?
totally.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so
Okay.
Councillor Jeffs wants
As long as
to...
that's clear, yeah.
Yeah, no one else speak. If you just explain it, and then we'll go on with debate.
So
We are in debate.
Councillor Jeff would like to reduce the overall amount of money in the capital budget, and so this is a mechanism to do so.
Okay. So we're in debate. Yes. Yep.
know that I want to raise, and that is, I'm going to support that. It's not a speech there, but I want, in addition, to move an additional separate motion to do with charging after that's passed, presumably. Not to replace anything, to be additional.
Yeah, and you can do that, councillor McPherson, if
Sorry?
you signal that in
Yeah.
debate, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I can debate that now.
If it's an additional motion, it's not
Yep.
dependent on this one, as long as you signal it before we've concluded the vote, and you have a seconder, you can put it in another motion.
Okay, so the motion that, do I say that now then? Yep, okay. The motion I want to move is actually B of the Mayor's proposal. This is an additional motion, not to replace what's up, no. It's not to replace Jeff's one.
It's additional.
Or Angela's, it's additional. So
Standalone.
it's a standalone motion, which is B with the figure of $10 instead of 25, and that the proceeds from this fee be added to the gardens budget.
Gary, do you want to second that?
Yes, very much so.
I thought you might. Okay.
Evil alliance.
So that's coming up as a vote after this one.
Water meters in there as well?
No, that's next. That's
All
the
right.
next item.
Okay, so can we continue? Can I just ask you to really focus your debates and keep them short, please, because there's 25 minutes of debate coming up otherwise, with 5 minutes a person. Oh, hang on, there's even more people, so yeah. Okay, Dave.
Okay. Well, look, firstly, I've decided to agree with the proposal to essentially do what we're doing now and do as much of the 13 gardens as possible, like Jeff suggested. I think it's cleaner, it gives surety of income, whereas a user charge doesn't actually give surety of your basic income. $10 per ratepayer, we know what that's going to bring in, so I'm going to go with that. But if I talk to the other one there, I'd talk to it again, just so that people follow my reasoning. I think the one gap in the existing policy and in Jeff's and Angela's motion is that the people from outside Hamilton, the adults from outside Hamilton, don't pay a brass razoo, whereas every Hamilton ratepayer does. And I think that's unfair. It's an unfairness we've been grappling with for quite a few years. I think the Mayor has been on the right track with suggesting a charge on outsiders, but I now think that should be additional to the charge on Hamiltonians. So in other words, we charge the Hamiltonians $10 property, plus we have a user charge on adults who aren't from Hamilton, also of $10. And in terms of collecting that, the staff tell us that they have they are rearranging the shop where that's going to be there, so it becomes an entry-exit portal. You have to go through the shop to try and encourage purchases at the store. So that will be the point at which you could collect the fee. You wouldn't need a whole extra buildings and turnstiles and things to do that. That could be arranged through the actual shop like do. So, but I do think it's time we address the fact that only Hamiltonians are paying towards something that a lot of people are enjoying who aren't from Hamilton. When we go to gardens outside this city, particularly overseas, gardens that aren't as good, and you do get a discount if you're a member of the society or a local resident, depends what the situation is. I went to Butchart Gardens in British Columbia, in Vancouver Island, probably the most famous world gardens. I paid 12 years ago 35 Canadian dollars, about 40 New Zealand dollars back then to go there, and there were thousands of people there. It certainly didn't stop people going, but it allowed those gardens to be kept up top-notch level because of that sort of income. So I'm suggesting we dip our toes in that water here, as well as doing what Angela and Jeff are saying. It's not really a foreshadow.
Councillor Hinge. So we're speaking both here. Okay.
It's easier to speak to both, thank you. Look, I am and have been fundamentally opposed to any charge of the gardens, because we have been down this road before and we have had two very in-depth reports before, and all the evidence says that if we charge, we will significantly affect, damage the reputation and the visitor numbers, which concerns me greatly, on the gardens. And then that has a trickle-down effect, and that will affect the city's economy as well. And nothing has changed since we got that evidence in 2013, and then when we got the updated... There's too many people talking. And then when we got the updated report in November as well, nothing has changed. We haven't got new evidence that says actually charging would be a good thing for the gardens and for the city. If you follow the money, and I like to follow the money, the trickle-down effect in the last report that we got said that the gardens will bring in $11 million into our city's economy, and by putting a charge on the gardens, excuse me, and cutting visitor numbers significantly, we are throwing away $5 million that comes into our economy. Excuse me. Now I'm not well. That's money these restaurants and shops and hotels and motels. Oh my goodness. Hang on.
That shortened the speech, didn't it?
The camera's going to get all that.
You look great.
I don't, I look terrible. Charging the entry fee to the gardens would be a really backward decision, and I hope that that's not supported. Also, in the survey, in the evidence, it asked over 500 people that even if the fee was $5, would that affect your decision to visit the gardens? And these were people from outside the city, and 65% of those people said yes. Even $5 would have an effect on our decision on whether to come to Hamilton for the day. So that's certainly my reason. I support the evidence. I've never been in favour, when we started this journey, of putting in an entry fee. So that's why I'm fully supportive of the motion. The important thing of the motion is actually the targeted rate gives a surety to the Development Trust and the Friends to be able to leverage when they go out and raise the money, because that's what's happened before so significantly successfully. And I think public are used to it, they appreciate it, they like it, and it's what we're doing now. So it's a great motion, it's worthy of support, and it actually does reduce the capital budget as well that's being proposed. So that's me, and I didn't die at the end.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Martin.
Yeah, first of all, I think the Councillor Taylor-Leary motion is a good one and is a good way forward, and I do like the targeted rate to continue. I'm going to support the foreshadowed motion, because we're speaking to both at the same time, as a proposal, because, you know, this could all be avoided if, say, the Waikato Regional Council, whereas we as Hamilton ratepayers apparently pay a levy for the velodrome, if they could sort of have a similar thing across the sub-region, and we move into, you know, the need to look at funding regional facilities. And I know the Regional Council are going to be incredibly sympathetic for the regional theatre proposal. I'm looking forward to their response on that, and I'm looking forward to, you know, so I think whether this gets up tonight or not, I do think we have to address the issue of how non-Hamiltonians make a contribution to what Hamiltonians are funding. And as I've said to you, you know, if you live in an average house in Dinsdale, you pay your $10. If you're the multimillionaire in Tamahiri, you don't have to pay anything. And I think other thing is we do want to encourage, and I do acknowledge the wonderful people who belong already to the Friends of the Gardens. Of course they shouldn't pay, they're making a contribution already. But if I go overseas, you have a local card where the locals get in for free and then outsiders can join a Friends of the Garden. I think there may be a point where there is critical mass, and I'm not sure if we've reached that spot yet, but I do personally see an unfairness. I'm a bit confused that people would say if we charge $5 they will not even come to Hamilton and the Gardens, but if we don't charge $5 they will. So where else they spend, you know, I mean, look, I don't know, I mean, that's an interesting logic, but anyway, thank you, Jeff, for the first motion. I think that's a good way forward, and I'm going to support the foreshadowed as a test for public consultation and see where it goes.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you. Just first one, Jeff, is just a question, just a clarity. So we've got $9.3 million in total, of which $7 million is capital. So does that mean the $2.3 million of operating expense would be averaged out at $230,000 per annum? Because that's the total operating expenditure.
Can I just explain? It's actually the total operating expenses are $4 million over the 10 years.
Yeah.
There's $1.8 million revenue from the development trust, who are raising $300,000 a year for 6 years towards these gardens, which comes in as revenue. So that's a net figure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the $7 million is the actual capital cost.
Okay, thank you. That it was more the operating. I would clarify it on. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I will support the motion, and I will also support the. Am I talking? Do we talk about the foreshadowed as well? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I listened to what Angela said, and respectfully, I don't think she could be more wrong. She said nothing has changed. Well, heaps has changed. Over the last few years, we have the ratepayers of this city and our friends of the gardens have raised and spent millions and millions of dollars of developing these gardens up. This is a substantially different garden than it was even 3 to 4 years ago, let alone 5 or 6 years just opened. Another thing that's changed is that council's financial position has moved to a far more precarious state than it was previously, or has been identified as being more precarious than it was previously. And thirdly, and this is the one that I like, it's a really good test of just how good our gardens are if people are prepared to pay $10 to get in there. If they are not prepared to pay $10 to get in there, then something's wrong. Because I'm a ratepayer and I'll get in for free, but those gardens are worth $10, easy. And if we've got that wrong, the market will tell us pretty quickly.
Councillor Paula.
Thank you. I have to confess to being a little bit confused where this was heading, because I wasn't involved in the huddle during the break to kind of figure out what was going on. And I understand the $10 is what's being used to raise that money, not additional, so that's fine. Look, I think the gardens are absolutely fabulous. Been a fan of them for a very long time. In fact, my mother, when she was a corporate librarian here at the City Council, worked doing the research for Peter Sergel to design some of the very early gardens, including the English garden. How fitting. But anyway, so whenever I look at the tiles in the English garden, I know my mother's got a hand there, and I'm quite happy about those. I don't support the targeted, the entry fee, so I'm not going to vote against that, because we haven't had a body of evidence at all that suggests that that will bring up additional revenue. We've just got evidence that it will reduce the number of people potentially visiting the gardens. I've heard all kinds of ad hoc numbers bandied around. Shall we make it 10? Shall we make it 5? Shall we be 25? Why 25? That's what they charge to get into Kew Gardens. Do me a favour. Kew Gardens is on the outskirts of Hamilton with a vastly bigger population of tourists than we'll ever see. But that's not the real point why I don't propose that we charge entry. Our community has raised a lot of the money for those gardens first place. They've done it, and we've assisted them, and we've worked together. So I don't think we could do that if those people who've helped build this special place aren't happy with it. And I'm not hearing that I'm hearing, for example, the Indian Char Bar Gardens. So it is so late at night, so excuse me. Was funded by the Indian community, and they're terribly proud of it. And they want to bring their visitors from overseas to see it, but they don't want to charge those visitors. So I do feel something for that argument. Look, I don't want to, I'm a bit concerned about the overall quantum of the community infrastructure. I've said that before, because I certainly don't want to set up a situation in which a fabulous project like the Gardens becomes a winner takes it all, and then we've got some other community facilities that we can't put any funding into. So I will remind the value of community assets when we got to talk about the zoo, and Councillor Gallagher, Lake Waiwhakareiki. So let's just be reminded of other things that add value to the experience of coming to Hamilton a bit later on in the debate. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you very much. As the last speaker before we wrap up tonight, I agree with with Councillors Taylor and O'Leary. For a very, very, very compelling reason, which I will give absolutely last. But you're right, the community did raise the money. We could be very, very proud of this facility. I'm extremely proud of these gardens when I take my family from out of town to them. Really excited about it. To have to charge them to me it's a step too far. I did give it a lot of thought. I considered the idea of it, and I agree with the value proposition of the gardens, but I still maintain, as I said when we first came up with the idea, rather than charge the people that are going through and put a gentle slit in the neck of the golden goose, what we should be doing is using these crowds and taking them places after they've been to the gardens, like the zoo, maybe like if the lakes thing gets going up north, one of our other wonderful propositions that we will grow, because Hamilton needs to be a city that is great to work, live, play and visit. If you're going to start charging people for our one world-class facility which has been previously free, it is going to take that off that. It's the only thing of that standard we've got in this town so far. We've spent a lot of money on it, but that's not the greatest reason. The greatest reason for me is that I happen to know that Angela's wonderful mother is in the Friends of the Gardens, and she scares me. Yeah, so, and she doesn't want it, and so in that case, I'm out. So, thank you.
Okay.
Last two speakers, but they suggested that there's a whole lot of community fundraising went into the gardens, which it did, but a whole lot more than that was actually rate money right from the start into the gardens. So I think someone needs to give us some figures going right back to the start to show that. The Char Bar Gardens is a good example. In the end, the community raised a lot, but they didn't raise the whole lot.
Mayor, this is cross-debate. Everybody gets a fair chance of debating.
It was a point of order on accuracy. It was a point of order on accuracy. Okay. I'll talk before we wrap up. And Jeff, you have a right of reply if you want to take it. No.
Thank you.
I hear over and over again people talking about outsiders coming into our city, using our amenity, using our facilities and not paying. And it's a constant gripe around this table. And here we have a chance to charge people who come from outside of our boundary, who don't pay the $2.2 million a year just to maintain the gardens, it's to pull the weeds. On top of that, we've got a further roughly $1 million a year going forward over the next 10 years. That's $3 million a year out of the ratepayer's pocket. The proposal is, if you're a Friends of the Garden, you get in for free as many times as you like. So if you live over the border and you love those gardens, you would be a Friends of the Garden. So you on your $35 ticket, you get in as many times as you like. And if we're that proud of those gardens, when friends from overseas come to those gardens, we'll happily put our hands in our pockets and pay $10 for our visitors. You'd get in for free as a Hamilton ratepayer, as somebody who lives in Hamilton. If they've got any children who are under the age of 18, it's free. But for the two adults you're likely to take, you'd be very crowd to put your hand in your pocket and pay $20. But this is our chance, and this is the first time this has been properly tested, to charge for people to go and look at the jewel in our crown. And yes, it might lower the amount of people who go in there. Yes, you can still go in and walk to beautiful Turtle Lake, the Rogers Rose Gardens, and kick a ball around in there. You've still got access to the rest of the facility. You still go down onto the riverboat. But what the suggestion is here is that the proposal that the outsider who comes into and uses all of our facilities, this is one area where they can put their hand in their pocket and pay $10, or better still, become a Friends of the Gardens and put their $35 up. And the Friends of the Gardens are totally committed to those gardens, everything they do and more, because they raise money, it goes into the gardens, back into the gardens. So that would be a win for the city as well. So even if you've thought you'd made your mind up, I just ask you just to reconsider, because this is about people paying their way who don't pay rates in our city. And on top of that now, it's not only the ratepayer that's paying, the ratepayers, this motion here, the ratepayer is paying another $10 in a targeted rate on top. So the ratepayer is paying for it through their rates. On top of that, there's another $10. And yet we're saying, if you're not from our region, if you're not from our city, you can get them for free. Well, I hope that I never hear again, if that doesn't happen, the talk of people coming into our city and using our amenities and our facilities at our expense, because this is a chance to actually do something about it. So I'm asking you to reconsider the position of where you are and vote for the motion, the first motion, and for the second motion. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the board. We're voting first on the Taylor O'Leary motion.
The motion is carried unanimously.
And the second motion, which is the Fush, yep.
The Unholy Alliance.
Stop voting.
The motion is declared equal.
That's a good way to end the night.
I'm voting stop right now. Hey, Caesar. Come back, mate. Oi, Caesar. Come on, you're holding the knife. What do the crowd say? That's what that Merrill said.
Yes, I'll use my custom vote.
You are Spartacus.
I'll use my custom vote.
The motion is declared carried on the casting vote of the chair.
Okay, just before we go, can we just have a wrap up from our finance team as just to where we are and just where we've got to? $10, yeah.
When are we coming back? Monday afternoon, eh?
Liam, when are we coming back?
Okay.
When are we coming back?
Well, at this stage, we're coming back at 12:30 on...
Monday.
Oh, no,
No, 10:30.
decided to...
Yeah.
I
And
might just want to check that everyone can.
can everybody, on Monday, can we make it at 10:30? Is that, otherwise a problem? Sorry, okay. So what's the earliest you can make it, Mark? 12 o'clock? Okay. Is A problem for anyone else? It was 12:30, so we bring it forward half an hour.
Disclaimer. Just that it will come back on Monday.
Oh, no, we're adding, change it.
Just Monday.
Are you sure about where we're at these numbers?
Oh, we'll have a disclaimer anyway.
Yeah, put that on.
All right, how are we going, team?
No, so we changed, so there was a conversation earlier with the Mayor, Councillor McPherson, and he and the CE were prepared to forego mayoral forum, so that suggested we might be able to start at 10:30. So Becca updated the appointment, but now we just are reminded that not everyone can be here at.
So we're asking now if we can make it at 12 instead of 12:30. On Monday. You come here and do the Muppet Show. Be part of it. You won't know whether you're acting or not.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, guys, far away.
Right. No, we're just recapping on where we've got to, because we've made a number of big changes, and we've made some changes that weren't in the proposals. So we've done some fairly quick calculations, and we'll need to check them before we meet again. But we're reasonably confident that it's okay. So just recapping. Yeah, big qualification there. Dead right. What time is it? It's getting late. So city parks, we reduced debt with the decisions on city parks, and we by about 8 million, and we reduced OPEX in every year by about $300,000. In rubbish, we increased debt by $6.4 million, but we also lost $9 million a year of revenue. And the Garden Place changes, they actually, thanks to Councillor Rob, netted out to nothing. Just different numbers in different parts of the budget. Yep. That's good.
Elegant.
Someone said elegant, yes. And then with the gardens decision, we've removed $3 million worth of CapEx, but we also removed $12 million worth of revenue. So some big chunks of revenue.
When you say $12 million, so what are you counting as the revenue from the $10 charge?
So we had budgeted in the system the $25 charge.
Yeah, so
you
haven't lost all of it?
We've lost all of it because we've replaced it with a rate.
No, well, the last decision, very last decision we made was for a $10 charge.
As well as the rate.
So it's about half a million.
As well as the rate.
So it would have been half of what it was before.
See, that's why we have to check these things.
So it's about half. It's only about. It's about half.
It'll be between 4 and 6 million, and
Yeah.
the modelling of that should be finished tomorrow or Monday.
Okay, so we're wrong.
It's going to get better than this.
We'll be slightly better than this.
Yeah.
$9 million we lost that. You say? Are you basing that on market share, or are you basing that on 100% market share?
So this is based on the numbers that we had in the Mayor's budget. The numbers we had in the... It had quite a yes.
50%
Yeah, yep, and that's the number we had in the budget. Now the rubbish one was quite challenging for us because there were from the day we locked down the budget, there were multiple changes to the budget since then. So tracking those changes was quite difficult. But what we did was we deleted what we had, we removed what we had in there and put in the new proposal, so it should be right. So we're looking at the blue is the original Mayor's proposal, and the red is where we've got to following these decisions. Did you want to say something, Richard? No, you're taking your card away.
Bye.
Bye.
But you'll check all of this with your relevant GMs over the next couple of days.
Yeah, but so at 15.5%, we're still balancing the books. Our debt to revenue has got closer, largely because we've had that 2.3%, the 2.3 times loss with the revenue that's come out rather than the changes in the debt.
But adjusting for the $10 garden charge.
We've still got to adjust for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just slide down, Brett, please. So you see the 15.5. Overall, we've got a reduction in debt, as you'll see on the left-hand column. Can you now change the revenue, Brett, to the 877? The rates to 877. So before we looked at 766, and that's what we needed to be within our debt to revenue ratio. We now need to be at 866. And like I said, we've taken out a lot of revenue, and 2.3 times that has meant that the 230% bar, while still at 230%, there's less capacity because of the loss of revenue. So the $10 will improve that a little, yeah. No, we can still do it at 15.5%.
Did you say 866?
876. 877.
So you've got about 600,
You got to add the 3.8. So it was 15.5, 3.8, 3.8.
you've got about one,
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you everyone for staying late, and thank